if somebody stops you on the street and starts talking about there's so much beauty in the world, you probably should run. You probably don't want to be in that person's presence too long because they're probably on PCP or something.
With that said, let's jump in.
Let's jump into it, ladies and gentlemen. We do indeed have another one. We've got another press play for you this week. It is, of course, the much anticipated Wonder Woman 1984. This was directed by Patty Jenkins, of course, who we'll jump into all the ins and outs of this movie. But it was actually written by Jeff Johns, Patty Jenkins as well, of course, as well as Dave Callahan. And so first, we're gonna do what we always do with every press play, is what we found relatable about this movie. I know we might have to stretch it a little bit for this, but what part of this movie, if any, Arun, did you find relatable about Wonder Woman 1984?
What did I find relatable? Yikes! I wasn't born in 1984. So I don't know. But what I can say is, like, what I love is, and I've always loved, like, the Wonder Woman character. I think she's like a great character. I think her story is always undertold. I thought it was undertold in the first movie, though I did like the first Wonder Woman movie. I've seen it several times. I was really excited for this new Wonder Woman story because I thought, like, all right, now she's going to be able to become like the full character that she is in the comic books. She's going to be able to, like, really show off her strength and her powers and all these incredible things that she could do. I mean, so a lot of people don't know this, but, like, in the comic book series, like, Wonder Woman and Superman have gone toe to toe maybe like 15 times. So I think Wonder Woman has 6 victories, Superman has 4, and then they have like 5 ties. So she is like a really, really formidable character, really interesting backstory, daughter of Zeus. And I thought a lot of that would come out in this movie, which is why I was so interested in it. But, like, it was underwhelming. So I can't wait to get into why.
Yeah. This movie was interesting to say the very least, from the perspective of, I know the anticipation for it was a lot, but I'm not quite sure it delivered on that anticipation. But what I found relatable about the movie is honestly the fact that it was the 80s, man. I'm an 80s baby. Although that came out a little weird. I am an 80s baby. I slurred my speech. Sorry, I had a little too much eggnog yesterday. But yeah, I'm an 80s baby, so obviously I related to the 80s motif, and that's pretty much where my where the similarities or the things that I found relatable about this movie kind of end. Although I guess maybe the other aspect is for Kristen Wiig's character Cheetah. What I found relatable about her character is this idea of being, kind of like brushed to the side in society, and not taken sort of seriously until you start, kind of demand to be, taken seriously. So I guess I found that a little bit relatable, but yeah, aside from that, not too much. Let's jump very quickly into the plot of this movie. I mean, what did you think of the plot for Wonder Woman 1984?
Yeah, so, again, here's where it's underwhelming. On the surface, like in the trailers and what we've learned about the movie before seeing it, I thought the plot was going to follow Diana as Wonder Woman on her, like, journey in 1984, like dealing with, like, that period in time, right? Like, maybe like fighting the villains or bad guys during 1984. And obviously Chris Pine's character comes back into her life, so it's a little bit of a romance story. But I thought the theme here was going to be like growth and like her learning how to be this new person. But it was not. It was something else. To be honest, like, I remember at one point during like an hour while watching the film, I really had no idea what the plot of the film was about. Like, I remember sitting there, I was watching it with my sister, and I was like, we were both like, what the fuck is going on? like is this movie about to be honest, I don't know if I could sum up the plot in one word. To me, it just seemed like a love story.
Yeah, I guess you can say that. But I don't even know if you can even sum it up as that. So where do we start here? So one of the things that kind of jumped off the map to me is that it was such a simplistic plot that you could have taken this, like, this could have been an episode on a Sunday morning cartoon. That's how simplistic and just not engaging this plot was. You have Gal Gadot's character, obviously Wonder Woman. She plays Diana, and she's mourning her lost love of Steve Trevor, and that much of it I could get, right? Like that much of it I was with. But then you move on to Maxwell Lord and Barbara Minerva, whatever the fuck her name is, Cheetah. You move to their characters and their motivations and their arcs are just so simplistic and so just like, what I can really say about this movie, man, is that, over the last, maybe 10, 15 years, we've really seen the needle sort of move forward in the superhero movie market, right? That it kind of started with Spider-Man in the early 2000s, maybe to like a lesser extent X-Men. But it wasn't until Batman Begins that everybody's like, ooh, what's this shit now? Or even you can even throw Blade in there, right? That Blade kind of made us look at superheroes a little differently. But like for sure, it was like the Dark Knight series with that Christopher Nolan put on that made us fucking see things differently, right? That to take superhero movies a little more seriously than we had before, if not a lot more seriously than we had before, right? What this movie felt like to me was like just a regression of all of that. It felt like we had returned to like the fucking Tim Burton Batman days, where it's just like the plot is super thin. You're not really sure at any given point in time what the fuck is actually happening or why it's happening. It just is happening because this is a superhero movie and this is what happens in superhero movies. There's nothing really engaging in this movie, and it's because the two villains in the movie, their motivations, and maybe to a lesser extent Cheetah, but definitely Maxwell Lord, like his motivation was so fucking transparent and just not engaging that it throws you off from trying to even remotely like this movie. And again, not that there's really much there to actually like, it's just filled with a bunch of like 1980s references and, Diana not wanting to give up Steve, and the whole way in which he came back as a different person. Don't even fucking get me started on that. That's so fucking, it was so weird and stupid. Like, why did he come back as a different person? Like, why didn't he just come back as like him? Was it just simply so she could look at the dude at the end and be like, oh, yeah, there he is, and then like the whole fucking end line between them was just so fucking cliched, and it's like, oh, it's just so much beauty in the world. And it's just like,
yeah, what? Oh god, yeah.
If somebody stops you on the street and starts talking about there's so much beauty in the world, you probably should run. You probably don't want to be in that person's presence too long because they're probably on PCP or something.
But I do know there's not. Did you see what happened last week when we were almost at nuclear war? Like, what are you talking about?
And that's another facet of the movie that just it didn't make any sense. Like, so some of the things just disappeared altogether. Like, I guess the nuclear explosions, like you see like the explosion like reverse, right, to basically take everything back. But then other things were just like left, like in terms of like it actually happened. People actually like remember that it happened. Like it was just, it was like, well, that's not coherent, right? Like, did the things happen or did they not happen? If any of what I'm saying makes any fucking sense. But yeah, I don't know, man. This was bad, dude. Like the first Wonder Woman I thought was okay. Like I didn't think it was great like everybody else thought it was. I thought it was just okay. But this is just a bad movie. Like there's just I really do want to see what everybody else is saying about this, because if they call this a good movie, I don't know why. Like what is the thing you're saying is good in here? I don't know.
So what I thought was this movie would be like what Batman Begins, the first Wonder Woman movie was like what Batman Begins was. It's like building the character, right? Building the story, much more about like backstory telling than about like building characters or villains, because you remember the villain in Batman Begins was just like Scarecrow, right? Like not really that big of a villain.
Well,
but again,
I would say I would kind of contest that, because I think the villain in Batman Begins was it was Scarecrow, but also for the main part it was Ra's al Ghul. You know.
Yeah. I mean, but like the villain that like most people know, right? Scarecrow was like the more notable villain that everybody knows, and Ra's al Ghul was like a secondary villain. He was like the overarching villain throughout the movie, but you really didn't see him until the end, right? But I just felt like Batman Begins really just built the story of like how Bruce Wayne became Batman, right? And like, you know, what and where Gotham City was, and it just like story told, you know, it built what was to come. That's what I thought the original Wonder Woman movie was. So I had high expectations for this movie. I'm like, okay, you know, Diana, she's in the world of man. She's realizing her powers and her strength and who she is and who she can be. So we're going to catch up with her in 1984, and she's going to have really like stepped into her role as Wonder Woman, and like be the character who like we've come to know, especially if you're a fan of the comic books, right? That like never happened. This story was just like incoherent. It jumped all over the place. I still don't know what the fucking movie was about.
Yeah, I think that's what's tough, man. Is that yeah, I don't know exactly what the fuck happened with the plot. I don't know exactly the artifact. I don't know exactly all that shit she was saying about it. I still don't understand it in terms of like why it was important, where it came from. It seemed like they just zoomed past all that shit in favor of, I'm not sure what. Like we went through 2.5 hours of this movie, and honestly, I don't really know. Like I couldn't tell you all the big like beats of it. Like I don't know exactly what the fuck happened in this movie. Like I guess you have your big like action sequences, but like in terms of like the plot, I couldn't tell you any specific, or I mean, I guess I could tell you some specific moments, but like it just felt like it felt so empty. Like for being a 2.5 hour movie, it felt like at the end of it, you're just like, tight. What else am I doing with my day?
Yeah, this movie is literally opening up a bag of chips, right? Where it seems like full, and it seems like there's so much in there. And you're like, yeah, I'm excited for this. This is gonna be so great. And then you open it up, and it's like mostly just air and fluff. And then it's just a few like broken chips at the bottom. Yeah. And like, you still eat it, and I still watched it. I still like, enjoyed some parts of it, but like mostly this movie is just an empty bag of chips.
Yeah. So let's jump into our into the characters. For as much as we can, I guess. Let's talk about who our MVPs were, who our runners up were. The casting by credit for this is Christy Carlson, Pat Morgan, and Lucinda Sison. Who's your runner up and who's your MVP for this movie?
Oh, fuck.
I guess if you have to choose, right?
Yeah, if I have to.
Yeah.
My runner up, I would say, is Chris Pine. He was in this movie, like he was like the comedic relief, which was very, very much needed. Like there are certain parts, like when he came back and he's trying to figure out like 1984 and everything's so amazing to him. And I remember like they're trying on the clothes, and he's like, there's a parachute pants. Like, does everybody parachute now? Like that was genuinely funny. I laughed at that scene. And then like, we saw it in the trailers, but like when they're walking through, I guess like the art museums and the aerospace museums in Washington, DC. And like, I remember one point they're like walking through like this outer park area. And then she was like, oh, everything is art. It's all art here. He looks at the trash can, and she's like, no, that's just a trash can. Right. like little moments like those throughout the movie were like fun. And like, it made you laugh. I didn't feel like the movie had enough of that, because in reality, if you went from whatever fucking year they were from, 1920s or whatever, to like 1984, you'd have a lot more questions. But he just like picked the shit up. So I thought he played his role well. He did what he could do within the confines of what was given to him. And I think he did a really good job. So he's my runner-up. My MVP, this is a toss-up, because I really do think Pedro Pascal did a great job as Max Lord. Again, given what he was able to work with. I feel like he was a comedian here. When I saw him, I didn't see Pedro Pascal. I'm like, he really is this character. I just feel like this movie was so bad and the plot was so bad, it really like undermined what he could have brought to the table. So I got to give my MVP to Gal Gadot. I mean, I think she, seeing her in this role as Wonder Woman, I don't know who else could have really played it. I just feel like the writing here and the direction here for this film, like, really, again, undermined what she could have brought to this role. But I think she did a phenomenal job as a Wonder Woman.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to go with. I'm not even gonna give a runner up. Honestly, I don't think there wasn't really a runner up for me. I think my MVP here is Kristen Wiig. And the reason why I think it was Kristen Wiig is because she wasn't really given anything for the character, right? Like, it was very transparent in terms of, like, you know, what they were going to do with the character, how they were setting her up. It was very formulaic. I honestly, again, I really felt like I was watching like a fucking 90s era Batman movie with just how, like, I almost felt like they were setting her up like Jim Carrey was in Batman Forever, right? I believe that's what I'm thinking of, where he was the Riddler, right? Where he's just like this like eccentric fucking science dude, or I guess whatever the fuck you call those guys, I guess. And then he was just like, you know, he was just all over the place with his character. And then he, you know, it's revealed like, he creates this machine, yada, yada, whatever. So I felt like she was set up like him, but I felt like Kristen Wiig did what she always does great, which is she has great, I think, comedic timing. All of her sort of like under the breath sort of comments and shit. I think all of that just worked really fucking well. And she made you feel something for the character, even though that I think on the page and with her words, there really wasn't much to feel there. But I think that because of her performance, you at least felt something, you know, for her character, which I think was, it's a hard thing to, it was a hard thing to do given, you know, what the script was. It just wasn't great. And so anyways, she gets my MVP. Let's talk about the cinematography real quick for the movie. So the cinematographer for the film was Matthew Jensen, and the film was edited by Richard Pearson. What did you think about the cinematography?
Cinematography, I mean, I thought it did what it was supposed to do in an action movie like this. It captured a lot. I mean, there was a lot of like CGI use here. It looked great. Like, there were very few moments in this film where I thought like the way in which they captured the film was like subpar in any way. I thought they did a great job capturing the film, whether it was like the environment that they were in, really painting the picture of 1984. There were a lot of like scenes in which they use like really dynamic camera motions, especially like in the fight scene that we're seeing here on the trailer. I thought it was purposeful. Nothing really stood out to me in particular, but the movie looked really good. One of the things I did notice was the grading of the film. Like, it had like this like grainy texture to it, which again puts you in the point in time in which this film was supposed to be, like in the setting of the film, right, which was 1984. That was something I noticed early on.
Yeah. The one thing I really did like about I think we all are, not all, I guess, maybe I retract that, but I think that the motif of the 80s, the neon lights, the kind of like the pastel colors, all of that, everybody still fucks with to this very day. And they had that in this movie in spades. The other thing I think I can kind of point to with the cinematography though was the CGI. To me, the CGI was lacking in very specific areas. For one, with Cheetah's character, with Kristen Wiig's Cheetah, towards the end, that obviously was just bad. I don't know how else to put that. It just looked bad. It looked cheesy. It reminded me of the end of Black Panther with when Killmonger and T'Challa are going at it in the tunnel thing.
That was bad.
It just looked bad. And then also too, there were some key moments with Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, of course, that I just thought it, like, you could tell like it was like a green screen. It's like you guys have millions of dollars. Like, there's no way you could have made this like look like better, in terms of just having it blend in more and just make it look like way more realistic. Like, I think it was the when they went to, I forget what country they went to. They went to fucking damn, I forget what country they went to, but they went to the
Cairo.
When they went to Cairo, Egypt. They went to Egypt, and they have the whole big sort of action sequence with the trucks and everything. That whole scene just looked like that, or that beginning scene where she's like running up to the fucking trucks and shit. it just looked terrible. Like it was just like, yo, did like a fucking, a 12-year-old do this? Like, like trying to fucking, map shit out on their fucking, on OBS or some shit. Like it just looked bad, So I don't know. For me, the cinematography, like I think for the most part, it wasn't really that big of a deal, but also at some specific parts, it looked bad. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what else to say about this movie, man.
Yeah, there's not much. Like there weren't many highlights for a movie of this caliber, right? Like if this went like straight to streaming or VOD, and this is just like, if this was like went straight to Redbox or something like that, and you get what you pay for, like that, I get that. But like this movie should have been so much bigger and better than it was, given how much time they had. Because I feel like they had extra time to like maybe go back and edit it and change it, right? And like, with the movie getting pushed back so much, the studio had time with this. Well, I don't know what happened.
I mean, I guess maybe I can see it both ways, right? Like maybe they had time, but also too, maybe they sunk so much money into it, and you're not going to recoup a lot of that money back. So trying to go back and fix some of the things you thought might have been bad about it might not have been cost effective in the end, because you're spending money on a movie that you're not going to recoup the money back for. So it's kind of like you're losing it both ways there. So I don't know, man. But let's talk about the music for this. The music by credit for this, of course, is the legendary Hans Zimmer. What I would say is I kind of like the kind of Amazonian sort of theme that they did sporadically throughout the movie. I've always thought that was good. Like whenever they added that in, whether it be in the Wonder Woman movies or in Justice League or in Batman vs Superman, I always thought that was a good jingle to throw in there. But aside from that, didn't really notice or really care too much. I guess it sounded like the '80s a little bit with some of the background tracks that they use sporadically throughout the film, but it wasn't anything to like write home about.
Yeah, I mean, I just got to echo pretty much everything that you said there. Like, it fit like the point in time in which this movie was set in, but I can't think of any like standout moments.
Yeah. So let's give our final thoughts about the movie here. My final thought about Wonder Woman 1984 is, look, I thought Maxwell Lord and Pedro Pascal, I adore him as an actor. I think he's a fucking great actor, right? The problem is, this movie, his character's motivations, the idea of his character. Obviously, it was a indictment on Trump. This was supposed to be basically the Trump character. It was very thinly veiled. But his motivations and all of that, the whole sequence with him was just comically bad. Like it was like this took us back a bit, and we've progressed so much with superhero movies. I feel like this was a step drastically backwards with this movie, in terms of just like we've gotten so many great villains over the course of the last like 10 to 15 years when it comes to comic book movies. Obviously, maybe the height of which you could argue Heath Ledger's Joker. You can argue Josh Brolin's Thanos. And there's been a lot of bad ones along the way too, but this might have been the worst of them all. I think it's just so transparent, and there just wasn't that much there. So that's the last I can say about the movie. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, again, for me, I feel like the Wonder Woman character is such a great character. I mean, like she's the daughter of an Amazonian and Hippolyta. She's the daughter of Zeus, and she has this like really great backstory. She is kind of able to do a lot of the things that like Superman can't do, right? She has the magic, but she also has like strength and the speed. And she's actually like in the comic book, she's actually a superior warrior to like someone like Superman, right? In like terms of like hand-to-hand combat and all that stuff. And none of that came to life in this movie. Like this movie was just her fucking around in DC, and and then they went on like a trip to Cairo, then they came back to DC like the next day. Like I feel like that's what this movie was about. I wonder how many air miles she's got. This movie is just underwhelming. A decent watch. Like, did I hate watching this movie? No. At a certain point towards the end of the movie, did I wish like it would just hurry up and end? Yes. I don't know where they go from here with this. Like,
yeah.
But
Yeah.
we watched it. I still recommend you watch it too, but I just don't. It was just underwhelming.
Yeah. And I'll throw this in there, just to make it not seem like I'm just trying to shit all over a movie incessantly. But like the actual beginning sequence, I thought was great. I thought, when she's a kid and she's going through all this, she's basically going through a Ninja Warrior situation there. I thought that was great. I thought it was a good setup. I found myself like engaged and thinking like, okay, like, let's go, but it just went downhill from there. It just was that was like the best the movie had to offer. It was really that first like 10 to 15 minutes there.
After that was like the mall sequence and like, which, oh my God,
that didn't make any sense either. And it was just so bad. Yeah. But whatever. That was Wonder Woman 1984. We pressed play on a movie. We're sure that a lot of you did as well. Let us know in the comment section below what you guys thought of the movie. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What characters did you like? Did you like how the movie looked, felt, yada, yada? What do you think of the plot? Talk to us. Let us know below.